So both Uber and Lyft, as well as the CDC, have come out and said that you should have your windows open whenever in a rideshare vehicle. So if you're a driver, you should always have your windows open. And also if you're a passenger, you should expect the windows open. But what configuration is actually the best? And that's what we're talking about right now. Hey everyone, Chris here for Real Rideshare Stories. If you're new to the channel and you're looking for different things within the rideshare industry, whether it's updates to what's going on, news, tips and tricks for passengers and drivers, or what actually happens on real rideshare rides, start now by hitting that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. Also, make sure to check the description below for other helpful information and tips. So yes, Uber and Lyft recommend having windows open when it comes to taking any sort of rideshare ride to help reduce the transmission of COVID-19 or really any disease or sickness for that matter. But what window configuration being open is going to be the best? Well, a research team actually took the time to try to figure out what is going to be the best and put the research out there. So we're going to be going over what that is, and maybe if you were kind of expecting it to be a little bit different, meaning you had certain windows open, certain windows closed, you might rethink that. So let's go over that, what it's going to look like right now. So now this is going to be taken from phys.org and it's titled Research Reveals How Airflow Inside a Car May Affect COVID-19 Transmission Risk. Link will be in the description below. So if you want to read the article in full, if you want to check out some of the diagrams and different things like that, it's going to give you all the information that you can check out because I'm only going to go over a little bit of it. All right, so right off the bat, let's look at 6 different configurations of having either windows closed, some windows open, others closed, or all of them open, and what it's going to look like when it comes to transmission risk between aerosols from the rider and the driver itself. So when you look at these configurations, just going to go over a couple of things real quick. These solid black lines right here are windows closed. This is a passenger, this is the driver, and then these dashed lines are the window open. So just going down here, it says a new study looks at how airflow patterns inside the passenger cabin of a car might affect the transmission of COVID-19 and other airborne pathogens. So this is going to be not just COVID-19, but other ones as well. So using computer simulations, the study looked at the risk of aerosol particles being shared between a driver and a passenger in different window configurations. Redder shades indicate more particles, and it says risk was shown to be higher with windows closed, which is this configuration or configuration 1, and decreasing with every window open. And the best is having them all open. So first, let's go over these because it can look a little counterintuitive to see how it all looks. So going to configuration 1, having all the windows closed just shows you how much transmission there could possibly be for either COVID-19 or any pathogen for that matter. So that is something where if you have all the windows closed, it's not going to be good for you or the other person inside the vehicle. Now, if you have your window open as a driver or your window open as a passenger and the other 2 windows being closed, meaning the driver's side window, front window being open and the passenger rear window open, it's going to show that there is still some risk involved, but it's going to give the driver a greater risk because airflow actually goes forward instead of backward because of pressures within inside the vehicle. So that just means your pressure is going to be lower pressure up here and it's going to be higher pressure back here. So your airflow is going to come in from the rear and go up front. I'm going to show you a video in a little bit showing that as well too. And then having configuration 3, this is where the front passenger side window is open and the rear driver side window being open as well, but the other 2 are going to be closed. It shows that there is going to be still some risk of transmission, but it is still greatly reduced. And again, that's because of the pressures within the car itself. Then going on to configuration 4, having 3 windows open and the driver side front window closed. You could see, again, it's going to put the driver having more risk of any type of airborne transmission. And then having this configuration of window 5, you see that it's going to have all 3 windows open except for the rear passenger window, which is going to produce, again, a little bit less when it comes down to the transmission. And then having all of the windows open configuration 6, you can see there's very little between the two, and there is pretty much no red or very little risk for passenger to get something. And again, the driver is going to have a little bit more risk, and that's based on the pressure, but there is a lot less involved there. This is also aerosols that will be coming from the driver itself. And so it's going to be sitting a little bit here. And we're going to be talking about the microclimates that are going to be involved in this configuration within the article itself. So as you can see right there, if you have all the windows closed, it's just going to be pretty much anybody's game and anything could happen. If you start opening a couple of windows, it's going to greatly reduce the risk of possible transmission and spread. And if you have all 4 windows, that's going to be the best. Now, I know in the winter, it's going to be very difficult to actually do something like this and keep your windows open, at least the whole way. But even if you have them cracked open just a little bit, it's going to be much better because you're going to have a lot more airflow going through the car, having all 4 windows open, at least partially, and it's going to help reduce the risk between passenger and driver when it's in that type of scenario, between having the driver in the driver's seat and then the passenger in the rear passenger seat, giving you the most amount of space between the two. So now going on to this article, again, if you want to read the thing in full, link will be in the description. I'm only going to pull a couple of parts of it. So it says a new study of airflow patterns inside a car's passenger cabin offers suggestions for potentially reducing the risk of COVID-19 transmission while sharing rides with others. So the study is done by a team at Brown University, and they use computer models to simulate airflow inside a compact car with various combinations of windows open or closed. And the simulation was around a Toyota Prius. Obviously, it's going to be different between the different vehicles that you drive, but overall, it's going to be very similar. So then it goes on and it says, the simulation showed that opening windows, the more windows, the better, created airflow patterns that dramatically reduced the concentration of airborne particles exchanged between a driver and a single passenger. Blasting the car's ventilation system didn't circulate air nearly as well as having a windows open. Blasting the car's ventilation system didn't circulate air nearly as well as having a few windows open, the researchers found. Then it goes on, it says, driving around with the windows up and the air conditioning or heat on is definitely the worst case scenario, according to the computer simulations. Then it says the best scenario they found was having all 4 windows open, but even having 1 or 2 open was far better than having them all closed. And one thing to really point out right here too is it says the researchers stress that there's no way to eliminate risk completely. So even if you have all of the windows open, it's not going to necessarily mean that you're 100% in the clear. So going on to the simulations themselves, how it was used and made, it says the computer models used in the study simulated a car loosely based on a Toyota Prius with 2 people inside, a driver and a passenger sitting in the back seat on the opposite side from the driver. The researchers chose this seating arrangement because it maximizes the physical distance between the 2 people, even though it's still less than the 6 feet that's recommended by the CDC. But the models show simulated airflow around the inside of a car moving at 50 miles an hour, as well as the movement and concentration of aerosols coming from both driver and passenger. Aerosols are tiny particles that can linger in the air for extended periods of time. They are thought one way in which the virus is transmitted, especially in enclosed spaces. And then when you looked at some of those simulations, you saw that the driver was a little bit more at risk than the passenger. And the reason that happens is due to different air pressures and just airflow itself. So this right here says because the way air flows across the outside of the car, air pressure near the rear windows tends to be higher than pressure at the front windows. So as a result, air tends to enter the car through the back windows and exit through the front windows. So with all the windows open, this tendency creates 2 more or less independent flows on either side of the cabin. Since the occupants in the simulations were sitting on opposite sides of the cabin, very few particles end up being transferred between the two. The driver in this scenario is at slightly higher risk than the passenger because of the average airflow in the car goes from the back to the front, but both occupants experience a dramatically lower transfer of particles compared to any other scenario. And just showing you these two different graphs right here, this is showing you how it would look like when it comes to the actual simulation. I'm also going to play a video in just a moment on what the airflow looks like so you can see it visually. I'm a visual person, so seeing stuff like this actually helps to make sense a little bit more, especially if you didn't know that the car brings air forward because of the pressure differences. So as you can see, this one on the left here has the front passenger window open as well as the rear driver's side window open. You can see that airflow comes in from the rear, and then either it goes out the front of the window or it will circulate through and kind of be pushed up front, and then kind of do this like circulation thing. So that's part of the reason why there's always the risk. And then just to put it into a different perspective of pretty much the same thing, what you're seeing over here. If you look over here, again, the incoming airstream goes into the car, wraps around the passenger, and then will split off into two ways. It'll either stay in the car where it's going to go in this low speed zone, which again, you can see over on this side, that's the low speed zone right here. And then the remaining will go outside of the car. So now this is just going to show you what the airflow is again for that same window configuration. And it's just going to show you the different windows that are going to be open and how the air flows. So as you can see right there, it splits off, it goes out the front window and then spins around the driver and then around the passenger as well. So that's why you can see that it's going to have a little bit more for the driver versus the passenger when it comes to two windows open versus all four. So wrapping up, yes, all four windows being open even partially is going to be much better than any of the other configurations, especially having windows closed. So if you're a driver and you're driving in the winter in the north climates where it's going to get very cold, I understand, yes, it's going to suck when there's a passenger in the car if you have all the windows open. But one of the things I would recommend doing is printing this sheet out right here that I have on. Either screenshot it or go in the link in the description below and print out that sheet just so you can show the passenger and say, look, this is for your safety. This is for my safety. It's to help reduce the risk, and hopefully they'll be just as understanding as well too. All right, so now I want to know your input. First off, what type of window configuration have you been driving with if you're a driver? And then also, has this video kind of changed your thoughts about having a couple of windows open versus all the windows open? Or if you were a person who's driving with the windows closed, are you going to start driving with your windows open, at least some of them or all of them? Comment below and let me know. All right, that's the end of the video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications so you'll be notified every time a new video is uploaded. Also, make sure to check the description below for other helpful information and tips. And as always, never drink and drive. Always tip your drivers, your delivery drivers, and your shoppers. And we'll see you next time.